What's going on, everyone? What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is AkeemHaynes. I'm a two-time Olympic bronze medalist, author, motivational speaker, and sports commentator. On my channel, we talk boxing, MMA, track and field, and of course, motivation and encouraging content. If this is something that you enjoy, then I hope that you subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get into the video.
Jose Valenzuela versus Chris Colbert. This is an interesting matchup because the reality is that the loser is going to fade a little bit and walk a tougher path to get back into contention and to get back those bigger fights. Not to mention, both of these guys are coming off their first loss. You're never sure how one is going to respond after their first loss, right? So there's also a lot at stake here for both men. Some questions that we'll get the answers to. So let's get into it. Let's start with Jose Valenzuela, 12 wins, 1 loss, 8 wins by way of knockout. He's been making noise in the recent years, right? I thought 2021 was a great year for him. I mean, he fought 5 times that year and looked good in every single fight. With the exception of one fight, he stopped most of his opponents by stoppage that year. He stopped Clay Burns, Nelson Hampton, Dante Strayhorn, and Austin Dulé within 5 rounds. All guys with winning records with the exception of one. But he was generating some good momentum going into his fight against Francisco Vargas. Now, if you've been watching Valenzuela, you know he starts quick, right? He's not afraid to press the pace early. He's not afraid to take risks and take them often and early. When he fought Austin Dulé, he took it to him early and went to work, hit the body a whole lot that fight. In the first round of that fight, he dropped Dulé with flurries of shots. Dulé was talking about it was a hit to the head, but regardless of the fact, it counted as a knockdown. Valenzuela can be awkward to fight, right? I think because of the different angles of shots he puts forth and where they can come from, right? He can loop his shots in and find openings. He can come in and bang right in front of you and land some subtle uppercuts that you didn't think was going to come. What makes him effective is the fact that he's looking to throw more than one shot at a time. He's not really a pot shot type of guy, right? If the opportunity is there, he's going to let his hands go. So if there's an opening, you best believe 3 or 4 or 5 shot combinations are going to come his opponent's way. But at the same time, because of his aggressiveness at times, he can get caught with some big counter shots as well. In his fight against Dulé, I mean, he dominated Dulé, no doubt about that. But he did get clipped with some big counter shots. If Dulé was a bigger puncher, he might have done something to get Valenzuela's respect. You know, after that Dulé fight, I left thinking like, man, this guy is pretty good, right? He seems to be getting better and better. And he has that type of style that pulls you in because he lets his hands go. And right, who doesn't like a fighter that is a high work rate, high volume, and just throws different types of shots? After the Dulé fights, he steps in the ring to fight Francisco Vargas. And I like that fight for Valenzuela, right? Because even though Vargas was a little bit older, it's still an opportunity to test himself because Vargas has been in the ring with Juan Manuel Lopez and Miguel Berchelt twice, Stephen Smith, Rod Salsa, Takashi Miura. And, you know, those are all pretty good competitions. And he's a former champion himself. Now, it gave us an opportunity to see what Valenzuela would be like facing an experienced guy and one who was a former champion. And sure enough, that man did not disappoint. You could tell early that the speed and the subtle movements was night and day favoring Valenzuela. Valenzuela caught Vargas with one of those lunging, looping shots that he likes to do and landed cleanly on Vargas's chin, and it was over with. It was one of those shots where you just like, oh, man. That's the type of shot that it was. It was a thing of beauty, how it connected and how we set it up. You know, so that was a lot of really good momentum going into his next fight. Now, in his most recent fight, the fight that he lost, when he fought Edwin De Los Santos, and while many people thought it was going to be another victory for Valenzuela, man, I didn't really feel right about that, right? Because De Los Santos is a very good fighter. He might not be as well known as Valenzuela, but that dude is a problem. He's strong, he's quick, he's got power as well, and he doesn't let you get comfortable, right? Valenzuela's awareness and defense, to me, in that fight, kind of let him down. De Los Santos really couldn't miss that night, right? He was landing everything and he was hitting everything. And yeah, he did get knocked down in the second round, but the way how Valenzuela was overcommitting to his shots and not covering up after he threw a shot, you could kind of see how this one was going to go if the fight continued to go on to the later round, because he just continued to get clipped with similar shots in the similar ways in similar sequences. Now, Dos Santos got that dog in him as well, and he's going to get more confident the more that his shots start to connect. But credit to Valenzuela for not giving up, because he was trying to fight back, but he got caught too cleanly, too consistently. It seemed like he never fully recovered from some of those big punches that he was taking. It was a hard lesson to learn, and I'm sure it's something that he will have to learn from, right? Like when you get too hit cleanly, no matter how strong of a chin that you have, you can only take so much before it really starts to add up. He's a risk taker, and this time the risk didn't pan out for him and work out in his favor. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to come back and respond in this fight, what he's been learning, what they've been working on inside the gym, because this is a great opportunity for him to get back on the winning column, and he's definitely going to be tested and definitely going to need to bring his A game to get the win against Chris Colbert. Now let's talk about his opponent, Chris Colbert. 16 wins, 1 loss, 6 wins by way of knockout. It does not take long to see that Colbert is athletic, he's fast, he's a sharp boxer, his jabs are nice and snappy, and his hand speed allows him to get away with a lot of shots that some boxers wouldn't be able to do. Seems like a confident guy away from the boxing ring and in the ring, right? And he gains confidence in the ring the more the fight goes on, right? He seems to always come in great shape, well-conditioned. He has good shot selection and mixes up his attack well. Uses the jab to set up different shots, whether it's the jab then followed by a straight hand down the middle, some of those looping shots, or the overhand shots. He's got some shots in his bag that can be problems for his opponent. Now, he isn't a guy to me who's a big puncher. I'm going to give punching power to Valenzuela as the bigger puncher out of these two. But he's a guy that if he lands the right shot, he's going to hurt you, right? He's going to make you pay. Before he got into the ring with Hector Luis Garcia, he fought Tugstad Nyambayar, who I think is a good, solid fighter and a good test for anyone in that division, because he's got skills and he's a tough cat. You're going to have to work to beat him because he's not going to quit. And I thought he fought very well in that fight. Man, he was sharp, he was accurate, he was efficient, and his hand speed and athleticism gave him the edge in that fight. But what I didn't like in that fight, though, was, he just got a little too comfortable for my liking, and he took some rounds off defensively, and you can't really do that in fights because those things start to become habits. There were some rounds where he kind of turned his rib cage and his side to Nyambayar, right? And I'm like, yo, what's going on? You can't be doing that, right? Because that is creating habits that could possibly carry over in your next fight, as it kind of did. But in his fight against Nyambayar, he dominated that fight, and I think it was a fight that made him a little too overconfident, in my opinion. Now, in his last fight, right, when he fought against Hector Luis Garcia, right, he had a great year last year. Hector Luis Garcia, man, when they fought, that was a fight that I told a few people who asked my opinion on it. I said, man, if you're going to bet, I just sprinkle a little bit of money on Hector Luis Garcia, because even though a lot of people may not have heard of him, the man can box, he can fight, he's an Olympian, right? So he's got that solid foundation, and the man was hungry. Hungry fighters is always a tough night for anybody. The thing with Colbert, right, is you got to find a way to push him back, right? If you can push him back and not allow him to impose his will and get confident in the fight, then you have a good chance of beating him, and that's what Hector Luis Garcia did. When Colbert is in trouble, he tends to shell up right in front of you, and he becomes a little stagnant rather than moving out of the way and staying mobile, using his quickness. Like, that is a big strength of him, is his athleticism. His athleticism has been helping him in a bunch of fights. But when you go up against someone whose foundation is solid technique-wise, and they got that meanness to them, it kind of closes the gap if they're not as athletic as his opponents are. We're used to seeing Colbert slip and move with fluidity around the ring, but we didn't really see that against Hector Luis Garcia. He kind of just stood there and tried to trade shots with him, and a relentless Garcia, who was a bigger puncher than him, man, he was just ready for whatever, and that was a fight that he just got to work and outwork Chris Colbert. Colbert showed a lot of toughness and heart, though, but he did get outwilled in that fight, and Garcia just kind of broke his body down. right? When he was slipping and moving, he was doing well. But when Garcia was pushing him backwards and he was fighting off the back foot and shuffling backwards, it just wasn't a good look. And it looked like he was a little bit flustered in the ring. And that's never really happened to him before. So it was a different thing to face. He's used to controlling the pace, and he's the one dictating the aggression level and outworking his opponents. But he got outworked in that fight. Garcia outworked him, out-hustled him, and on that night was just the all-around better man in that fight. But again, I still think Chris Colbert has a lot of good years left in him. Both of these guys are. So I'm looking forward to seeing how both of them do and show up in this fight. So who wins? Honestly, to me, it's a 50-50 fight, and you can't go wrong with whomever that you pick, depending on whom you like and whom you like supporting more. But as I'm making this and thinking about it, I'm leaning towards Colbert because I think he's going to come in a lot more defensively responsible in his approach. And I think he's going to get back to boxing on the outside, using his hand speed and jab. And that could be enough to steal a decision win. However, I could also see a point where Valenzuela drops him and winning the early rounds. He's probably going to be the more aggressive guy. But, you know, he did get countered a lot in his last fight. And Colbert's reflexes and hand speed are faster, I think, than De Los Santos. And that could be an avenue that he could consistently capitalize on if Valenzuela overcommits again in this fight. And I think it's a close fight. But right now, I'm leaning towards Chris Colbert to get a decision victory. What are your thoughts on this fight? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. If you would like to support the channel, there's a couple ways you can do so. You can like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to support by way of donation, you can find options in the description below. Also, my Cash App handle will be on screen as well. Any amount goes towards the growth of this channel and will be greatly, greatly appreciated. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video this long, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, and we'll definitely see you next time.